position. We got 2 full-time people. So to what extent can I
All right, we're ready to
Okay.
go.
Good.
I think that's
Welcome,
probably-
everyone.
Well, then that makes
Good afternoon, and welcome to the July 11th, 2019 Omaha Public Power District Board meeting. And we're going to start it off with a safety briefing.
Great, thank you very much. You're in the auditorium here at Omaha Public Power District. There are several exits to this room. Both of them, there's 4 of them, but the 2 that I'm going to talk about are ones to the back of the auditorium. There's also 2 in the front as well. The 16th Street side of our building is closed due to some reconstruction that we're doing there. And so if we have to exit this room, we'll exit on the Harney Street side, which will be on your right as you're exiting. And an emergency response team member will assist you in that evacuation and or sheltering in the event that we need to do that. The fire extinguishers are near the door in conference room A, which is just outside this door to the left. Take a left and then a quick right, and it's right on that wall by conference room A. If you have a medical condition, we would ask you to write it down or to please tell your neighbor. The AED and the first aid kit are on the brick walls as you would enter into the cafeteria on the right-hand side. And they're on one on top of each other. And is there anybody in the room who's certified in the use of an AED or in CPR? So there's quite a few folks that are here. And those of you that didn't raise your hand, we would ask you to get certified. It's important to do that. Go to the OPPD wire and listen to a story that one of our employees told about that and their spouses. Pretty important. In case of a fire, please do not use the elevators. And the exits are by the in case of fire, do not use the elevators. We'll designate you to the area that we need you to exit outside of this building. And Mo Hinners, or one of the members of our security team, will call 911 in the event that we need it. And in case of a tornado or severe weather, we would also direct you to a safe area. And so look for our emergency response folks to direct you at that point in time. And with that, that concludes my safety briefing.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Now let's run through our list of guidelines for the conduct of the meeting. First and foremost, please silence your electronic devices. This regular board meeting will follow the agenda made available to the public upon entering the meeting. This meeting is streaming live on the internet at oppd.com. Our regular board meetings have public comment periods on the agenda. Following board discussion on each pending matter, I will ask for public comment before bringing the matter to a vote. Also, prior to the adjournment of the meeting, you'll have an opportunity to comment on any other OPPD matters. If you wish to speak, please approach the microphone to your far left and state your name and address and state the name of any organization or person you're representing. Organizations should choose one representative to speak on their behalf so as to avoid repetitive commentary. Comments made by all parties during the meeting are a part of official public record. Each individual will be allotted 3 minutes per matter pending at the discretion of the board. To assist you, we have a red, yellow, green light indicator to ensure each member of the public receives a consistent amount of time. Ms. Hinners will signal you when 30 seconds remain, as well as when this time is up. Please direct your comments to me, not to other board members or the executive team. I will either respond to you directly or defer response to another board member or the officer of the district. If you brought any written materials, Ms. Hinners will gladly receive them on our behalf. Ms. Hinners, will you please take roll?
Bogner.
Here.
Kavanaugh.
Here.
Gay.
Here.
McGuire.
Here.
Mulhall.
Here.
Moody.
Yep.
Williams.
Here.
Yoder.
Here.
Notice of the time and place of this meeting was publicized by notifying the area news media, by publicizing same in the Omaha World Herald and outlets, by displaying such notice on the arcade level of Energy Plaza since July 3rd, 2019, and by emailing such notice to each of the district's directors on that same date. A copy of the proposed agenda for this meeting has been maintained on a current basis and is readily available for inspection in the office of the district's corporate secretary. Additionally, a copy of the Opens Meeting Law is available for inspection in the public meeting book located in this meeting room. The consent agenda items are as follows. Item 5, approval of the May 2019 Comprehensive Financial and Operating Report, June 2019 meeting minutes, and the July 11th, 2019 agenda. Item 6, 161 to 13.8 kV 182430 33.6 MVA substation class transformers, resolution number 6329. Item 7, SD9 Resource Planning Monitoring Report, Resolution Number 6330. Item 8, Annual Health Plan, Resolution Number 6331. If there are no corrections, changes, or additions to the consent agenda items, I need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items.
Do we have a motion?
Move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any comment from our directors on any of these items? They were discussed in depth on Tuesday's meeting.
Sure, and just to follow up on that, I thought the SD9 report was excellent, honestly. Thank you to the CFO for presenting it. I encourage anyone who's interested in that to go back and take a look at the videos, and I'm sure that the presentation is available online as well. What it included was much of the content that all of the board members had gotten in a series of 4-hour training sessions. So I really do appreciate the fact that that upper management and OPPD is working to include many different opportunities for public engagement and outreach in this area. Thank you.
And particularly with that information, the graphics that show the process for customer engagement and how the resource planning is carried out, I think is really helpful. So thanks again to staff for putting that together, making that available in that presentation. And any of the customer owners who are interested, I would recommend checking out those graphics, because that is very informative about all of the background information that goes in, the engagement process, the planning, and then additional engagement. And it's a process that I think is going to be very helpful moving forward. So thanks again.
There's no other comment from the directors. Any comment from the public?
Alan Gavoka, 3719 Hamilton. I noticed on the planning monitoring report, there was information on the monitoring and a reference to a new software tool, but there was no discussion about the granularity that data provides, or whether or not any of that data is available to the public. So what would I do to get more information there?
Sure you want that public information.
Well, so I'm going to look at Javier on this, but
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a shot, and you correct me if I'm wrong here. So typically, the granularity is that when we would go out and do a specific stakeholder engagement around our resource plan, in the resource documents is a pretty distinct background of the data that we use that goes into that. And the modeling that we use, the stochastic modeling and a variety of the other modeling and graphs that would identify prices and ranges of prices, of alternatives, of capital prices, of reliability, of resiliency, whatever that may look like. So if you go back to that resource plan that we filed a couple years ago, I think in 2016, 17, it would have some of that granularity and the details of that we filed with the Western Area Power Administration. So we would have that detail in there, even though the presentation doesn't have it. I would ask you to go to that, which is also online, I believe.
I'll follow up with
Okay, that would be great, because I'm curious about whether that's going to support two-way communication, which is in the plan that was announced last month, or if there's something else going on.
So this wouldn't in that regard. This is very specifically to resource planning. There are a variety of other kind of operational kinds of things that you're going to be seeing in the strategic initiative work going forward that truly does align to that as you think about not only energy flow in both directions, but communication flow in both directions and what that will look like, how that can facilitate kind of the new energy marketplace and what that will look like. And so we'll have more about that as we move forward. The resource plan is really about identifying the process to identify current resources and what future resources may look like and the process that we use to do that.
Thanks, that sounds great.
Thank you. If there are no other comments, may I please have a vote?
Bogner,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Gay, McGuire,
Yes.
Mulhoff, Moody,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Yoder.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Next, that takes us to the president's report.
Very good.
Mr.
Well,
Burke.
thank you very much. So I'm going to start with our base load generation. You can see on the chart here the different capacity factors of each of our base load generating units. Today, they're relatively high today, just because of what the load is going on today. And I'll talk about a little bit of that as well. Each one of these units had some operational issues over the course of the month that kind of reduced that capacity factor. But we did conclude the outages on both Nebraska City 1, Nebraska City 2 at the end of May, early July period. They're all functioning well and how we need them to function during the summer. If we go to the next slide, it would be focused on our peaking facilities. And you can see some of the changes relative to the peaking facilities, if you remember what they were from last month, but I'll kind of compare year over year just to give you a sense on what that may look like. So obviously Cass County here has a capacity factor of 8.5%, but in 2018 it was 12.6%. And in 2017, it was 0. And so you just see changes based on the market conditions, the need for resiliency in the market area as well. Our Jones Street station had a 0.4% capacity factor with some of the generation that was needed by that plant, but in the previous 2 years had 0%. Our North Omaha units 1, 2, and 3, over the course of time, this month they had 0, but as I reported in previous months, some of those we needed to use during those flood areas when we had a variety of transmission and other impacts to the systems. We used those plants, and I think Unit 3 actually maybe went up today on gas or yesterday. Tomorrow, I'll be on tomorrow on gas. So we're seeing some of that based on what's going on in the region relative to resiliency and the energy needs. And then the Sarpy County station had a 5% capacity factor, and that compares to 7.3% in 2018 and 5.4% in 2017. So it just gives you a comparison of what that may look like. Our June renewables, right now, if you looked at the chart as I came down, we have very little renewable energy going on right now in this regard, and primarily that is wind that we're not seeing at this time during this part of the day. But for the month of June, it contributed to 24.4% of OPPD's retail sales and had a capacity factor of 31.8%. Year to date, we've seen renewable energy contribute about almost 30% to our of our OPPD's retail energy sales with a capacity factor of 38.5%. Again, as you will see in a typical year, you'll see that kind of drop down during the summertime just based on normal winter patterns, and then come back up in the fall, winter and the spring time frame as well.
Tim, I'm sorry, the numbers on the screen were different than the numbers you read. It sounds like Mo might have some clarification.
They're correct on the screen. What I didn't do was I forgot to upload it, the revised version, to the
theirs.
directors in the
Yeah.
board book.
So what I was giving you is probably, I think what you have in your book is year to
over
date
year.
for June, but you don't have year to date in your book, and so these are correct. So we made that correction but didn't update the diligent.
I'll do
That's
that
fair.
afterwards, sorry.
Thanks for that transparency, I appreciate
Thank you
that.
very much.
Very good. So a little honoring our community I'll talk about in some of the work that we're doing. Part of it is around the ongoing strategy of talent and the needs that we have, not just within our region, but really across the United States for skilled talent. And so from June 3rd through the 7th, we had 8 educators from local high schools really spend a week with OPPD, really understanding the skills, the jobs, the capabilities that we need in our facilities. It's a great opportunity to really focus about STEM-related careers. And so some of the folks came from Atlantic High School in Iowa, Omaha Northwest, Millard South, Millard Public Schools Young Adult Program, and Omaha's Blackburn High School, and received some very nice cards back from them of their experience, and they really got the opportunity to see our men and women at work It was just good for them to be here. I had the opportunity to see them. Matter of fact, they sat in on our town hall that we had to talk about our strategic initiative. So it was an opportunity for them to be part of that and see that interaction that's going on. As several of them said, I'll never look at an OPPD truck in the same way after being here. And that was a positive statement, by the way. So very positive. So, and thanks to our team that supports that. It's just part of our commitment on STEM and STEM education. We had several days of action that occurred on June 21st. This is really in conjunction with the United Way of the Midlands. We had a part of our organization, our business technology, performance administration, our land management and records, spent some time at the Boys and Girls Club in the Florence area, helping instill a love of reading that will support lifelong literacy. And many students experience summer learning loss, also known as summer slide, when they're away from school during the summer months. And so it's just part of our commitment to make sure if kids can't read, they can't learn math and science. And as part of our commitment to STEM, it's important for us to continue those relationships. And so this is an example of some great work we're doing in the community. On Friday, June 21st, members of our Human Capital Group spent time at Lutheran Family Services in North Omaha. They've really built really a long lasting relationship with Lutheran Family Services, and they hope to continue that over time. And again, it's just a number of different things they do with Lutheran Family Services, and it's a great opportunity to talk a little bit about that. One that occurred on June 29th, OPPD for the first time participated in the Omaha Pride Parade. We were the last corporate entry in the long parade. And it was a hot Saturday, I can assure you that. But everyone did well and survived well. We had fluids and good fluids, and it all went incredibly well. But from our perspective, corporately, Heartland Pride really creates an inclusive environment, inspiring equality, celebrating diversity, and acknowledging the contributions of their community. And our perspective is very clear on this. We really want employees to feel safe to bring their whole selves to work, their whole authentic selves to work every day in the service of our customers and communities. And it's really our opportunity to be incredibly respectful for all of our customers that support, in this example, the Heartland Pride Parade and Pride Month. And so supporting our LGBTQ plus employees, their families, and our communities is part of our inclusive culture, and what's for OPPD, it's the right thing to do. And so employees throughout the company supported the parade, and by walking in that, we had a good time, had a lot of good camaraderie and a lot of fun. And some of us dance better than others, I think. I'm looking at Mr. Fouch, who was there as well. We had a good time, and Mart was there, and many of the other team members were there. Next, on honoring our community, I think the board has heard this before in the community, but in 2017, our facilities and environmental and regulatory affairs team teamed up with an organization called Save Our Monarch Foundation to really investigate, implement, and manage grounds that provide environmental sustainability, promote habitat for pollinating species, and reduce maintenance costs throughout the district. And so we did that again. We partnered with our public affairs group and our OPPD Latino Society. They joined facilities and our environmental regulations group by planting a number of different species of native wildflowers. They planted 539 plugs or seedlings. So they really did some work here. And so when these are grown, they'll provide nectar and shelter for various insects, including the monarch butterfly. So it's just part of our ongoing commitment to sustainability and the environment. And I know I don't ever tell the board when I'm going to do this, but you can go to the next slide. We have one of our board members that actually received the Energy Leadership Award at the Nebraska Conservation Award Celebration for 2019. So we want to congratulate Director Moody for that recognition. And lastly, I will, in concluding of the President's work, we'll talk about a little bit about Paul Neiman. Paul Neiman was a cable splicer that died on June 19th, 1989, from injuries sustained during a ground vault accident in downtown Omaha, actually not too far away from OPPD here. Fellow splicers Frank Dwornicki and Carla Fitzpatrick were also injured in that accident. Paul was 46 years old, had been with OPPD for 19 years, and he was survived by his wife Joyce and daughters Charity. And it's just a good recognition of our men and women that are out doing work in the public and in our plants, and our focus on safety. And I will tell you, as I talk about our plants that are operating to maintain electricity and power, and that includes the renewable energy as well, all of our energy sources. We have a lot of men and women that are out in the heat and in adverse conditions when they do that. And so, keep them in your thoughts and prayers. We do as well, to make sure they're hydrated, make sure they're rested, to make sure they do the work safely. But they are in some tough situations sometimes with this weather. Our power plants and associated peaking plants are not air conditioned. So they're working in outdoor heat, plus a lot of motors and things operating in that regard. So we'll always keep them in our thoughts and prayers as well.
I responded to that call when Paul was killed. That was a very difficult call, very tough situation. I remember that. It was on a weekend.
Yeah.
Late afternoon, I remember that.
Yep, it was one of our vaults. They were in a vault. And
Right down the street here.
Yep, it was nearby. Thank you. That concludes the President report.
Yeah, I have one other thing. I also want to thank you and thank OPPD for proudly flying the pride flag throughout all of our facilities. I think that's very, very important for our employees and gives a great message to our employees and the community on what type of a company we are. And thank you very much for doing it, and I look forward to doing it next year during Pride Month.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. That's,
Okay, thank
again,
you.
as I said, that's just part of our commitment and
That's right.
and the kind of organization that we are. And from the board's perspective, we are going to respond to the editorial that was in the Omaha World Herald, and we think it's important, one, just to tell the broader story. I've been on a campaign the last year to try to raise $32 million for the Omaha Chamber, and part of that perspective is really around talent, retention, and recruiting of talent. And if we don't think about diversity and inclusion as we think about talent, we are remiss of the greater issues. And so it's very clear. It's in the plan of the Omaha Chamber to really support that, and we as an organization support it as well. And so, and I would say every CEO that I've had the chance to talk to over the last year that have participated in Prosper Omaha 2.0 is also supportive of people and diversity and inclusion, and they know how critical it is in order for our economy here in Nebraska to continue to grow. So there's a business reason for it, and there's certainly just the right thing to do reason, and we think that's really important. So
Yes. Thank you very much. Yes.
Hey, can I ask a question on that teacher's STEM
Yeah.
deal? Is there a limited amount of slots for that, or how do we?
it's really not limited. We are in partnership with Metro Community College and the Omaha Chamber. And so there's a variety of teachers that are then kind of allotted throughout a variety of different industry and businesses that support that. I don't think we've ever limited it in ours, but we've had anywhere between probably 6 and 10 or 12 or something like that.
I'd like to get any information and get it to our schools in my district I represent.
We actually reach out to them as
Pavilion.
well. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
that's
So we're actively
good to
involved
know. Seems
in
like a
them.
good
and,
little.
And you're also,
Good
not
idea.
only STEM, but STEM is also, you're talking about including craft also in this.
Oh, it's actually,
Yeah,
it's,
it's both,
STEM
really.
includes that.
Yeah, STEM includes it, just to make that
Exactly.
certain, yeah.
Absolutely. It's all technical fields, all fields that, that certainly we need, and so.
Yeah, they're making a big push in that, and
You bet.
I know in our district and others, so it'd be good to remind the superintendents that's available, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and next, we have our next OPPD Strategic Initiatives update, and this month it's going to be customer engagement, and we have Vice President Julie
So I
Comstock.
want to kick this off a little
And
bit.
I
if
know
you-
you're gonna want to kick it off.
Yeah, thank
You
you.
always like to kick
Thank you
this
very
off.
much. Well, I think it's important.
We want to give her
to
kudos, and she
well,
deserves it.
I'll give her kudos when she's done today. So, but I know she's going to do an amazing job. No, she deserves kudos
The
anyway,
heat's on.
and her team. But I think it's really important, Mo, if you could go to the next slide, if you would here. I think it's really important to understand kind of what we're doing. We are really sharing our strategic initiatives that have been really developed and will continually be developed and are being kind of formed and scoped and scaled as we kind of move forward here, really based on the strategic directives that the board has agreed to and has approved. And I think this is really your management team's perspective about the direction that we believe it's important for us to go in order to meet those strategic directives. And so last month, we had Mary Fisher talk about the pathways to decarbonization, and all of this information in the same manner that Julie is going to share it has been shared with our employees in the organization as well prior to coming to the board. Then our intent is that once we conclude this in October, kind of the last of the 5 strategic initiatives is really kind of bound this up and be in a position where we could provide some more community outreach and have that conversation if organizations want us to do that. So what Julie's going to talk about is our customer engagement and how we plan on engaging our customers and really identifying kind of the direction that they believe it's important for us to go. And so I won't steal any of her thunder on that. And so with that, I'll let Julie talk about our customer engagement strategy. So thank you. There's
All
a
right.
Freudian slip somewhere
Thank
in there.
you. Good afternoon, everybody. So before I jump into the customer engagement discussion specifically, I want to give a little bit of context because I'm not sure who all was here last week to hear a bit of the context behind it. But the utility industry and OPPD obviously are in this time of transformation, and it's happening much faster. This transformation is happening much faster now than it certainly was when I started many, many decades ago. So we're shaped very much, the work we do is shaped by the trends that we see in our industry, by our customers' expectations and how they interact with service providers in all types of other industries, retail establishments. All of that impacts what our customers are expecting from us. So we take that into consideration, but also, first and foremost, we take into consideration what our strategic directives are. And those are the board policies that have been set. And the senior management team takes those directives and the goals and metrics that we have in there, and we have these discussions about our strategy and where we need to go. And out of that, we developed our guiding principles. And that's what you see up here on the slide. And I'm going to start on with the trusted energy partner. Obviously, that one is near and dear to me, and I'm going to really dive into that one on the next slide, but it's really focusing on our customers and communities and knowing that they can count on us to bring them that value, caring, and excellence in the service that we provide to them around energy. And then operational excellence is making sure that we are doing that in a safe, reliable manner, whether it's our generation systems, our energy delivery, everything we do, we want to make certain that we're doing it in a safe, environmentally sensitive manner, and that we're being innovative as a utility in how we do that. And technology solutions follows that innovation, and we want to make sure we're providing value-added technologies not only to our users within the company to run the business, but also for our customers as they're interacting with us as we move forward. And we want to make sure that those are secure and reliable as well. And then obviously we can't do any of this without having well-skilled and talented people to serve our communities. And finally, we also can't do it without some financial backing. And so that obviously comes through our revenue, and I want to make sure that we keep things affordable and that we're providing investment in our community as we're providing our energy services. So our look ahead for the work that we need to do is never ending. And so today, as I talk about the utility of the future, again, I'm going to dive into specifically this trusted energy partner and what that means to us. We can't deliver on being the trusted energy partner if we don't have operational excellence, financial stewardship, and the people to do that. So you can see up here some of the things that we hear from our customers. They want more choice. They want choice about the basic service that we provide them, but they also want choices in terms of, do we provide some offerings around energy efficiency? Can they have distributed generation? How do they go about doing that? They want to have digital tools that help to make their experience easy in interacting with OPPD. And they want to know that their utility cares about the community. And so we want to understand, as we're being the trusted energy partner, from our community's perspective, what do they see our role as being? So when we consider the trends that our customers are seeing when they're interacting, obviously, with other service providers, we want to be able to deliver a low-effort digital option and be able to provide that timely and accurate information in this real-time information world that we live in today. We want to be able to enhance the consultative services that we provide our customers around energy usage, around distributed generation, the sources of our energy, and any resiliency or reliability concerns that they have. And we want to be able to target new customers and our existing customers with new and improved products and services. And finally, in order to do that well, we need to engage our stakeholders. And that's really what this initiative is about, to make sure that we understand what they value and why they value it, and then how best we can serve those needs and provide a solution that meets the value proposition that they're looking for. So last month, Mary hit on some of the trends, and so I'm going to run through a couple of those, really from the perspective of how that ultimately impacts or drives the solutions that we want to provide our customers. So starting kind of on the lower left-hand, the carbon emissions and climate change. Those are topics that are, we see every day. We see information about the impact that the carbon emissions are having on climate. And so we want to make sure that when that's driving the sustainability efforts that we have, you've seen that change our generation landscape as we're moving towards our renewables, and that we're, by the end of the year, we should be at that 40% of our retail energy sales being supplied through the renewable generation. But it's also driving customers wanting to have their own generation so that they can have more control. And so we need to be in that business and help them understand how to make that happen. Another aspect is the electrification across the grid. Electric vehicles, we've introduced that pilot. We need to continue to understand how our community wants us to serve them in that role of helping to bring more electric vehicles into our service territory. It's a growth opportunity, certainly, for ourselves. But it's also something that then helps to reduce carbon emissions. One of the biggest carbon emitters is that transportation sector. And so then while there's this potential for the additional energy technologies in homes and businesses, it's going to drive the rise of that prosumer. And so last month, the discussion about that two-way communications, OPPD's role is going to move more into not just how we're moving the electrons around to serve the electrical needs, but how do we interact with the data, right, that needs to be moving back and forth between the energy company and the consumers, and how they're using our system, and how those transactions are playing out from a financial perspective in the marketplace. And then smart technologies. Obviously, our whole world today is kind of driven by the devices that we carry around in our hand, the smart technologies, the easy apps. That certainly is driving the interactions that our customers have with us and what they expect of us. And so we want to make sure that we're being able to deliver things that support that digital lifestyle and provide those experiences that they have elsewhere, providing proactive, detailed information, increased automation of the service interactions, and to anticipate, really, I think that's something that customers are really looking for us, is to anticipate what they might want and make sure that we have and design that experience accordingly. So ultimately, with these changes in the industry, customers are going to have more choice. And so we want to make sure that we're providing choices for our customers that meet their energy needs. The challenge with this is that not all 380,000 of our customers value the same things. And so that's really what's driving this customer engagement initiative. So our future is really about listening and anticipating those customer needs, and this initiative is going to help us get there. So the customer engagement, an overview of the project, it's really about how do we proactively seek input from our customers in order to better understand and deliver on what they're looking for from their utility provider, and to build out a framework that we have this information, we have this research data from our customers, and that we're able to use it on a more proactive basis than what we have in the past. So I'm going to share a little bit about where we are today with our research, because I think our teams have done a great job historically with the research that we've needed as a utility. But as with everything in the utility industry, those needs are evolving. And so we have done, as a public affairs team under Kate's direction and Kate Thomas's direction, Al Wunderlich's team have always done a great job of getting input for market research. When we had a product or service we felt that we should be providing to our customers, they helped us go out and get that data. They provide the customer satisfaction data and help us monitor how we're performing against our customers' expectations today. Tim O'Brien's team has built a very sophisticated customer engagement or stakeholder engagement process. You've seen it play out around the transmission line siting, the rate restructuring, and there we're seeking quantitative information. We're doing focus groups. We're informing and educating customers. We're seeking their input and really using that to help design and deliver what we are providing them. Additionally, we have done what have been traditionally called after-call surveys or interaction surveys. We've shifted now to do customer experience journey surveys that give us very specific feedback about an interaction that customers have had. And with our latest, our customer experience strategic initiative, we were introduced to the concepts of design thinking and doing empathy interviews with our customers to get more insight really to put us in the, look at our processes from the viewpoint of the customer so that we could better improve that journey and not look at it from the utility perspective. So these have all been great tools. They've been a little bit reactive rather than proactive. And so I think that's the evolution you're going to see with this effort. We do these studies, we use them for the purpose that we set out to, and then they sit on a shelf or in a file, we'll say, on our computers, but it's not in a database or data warehouse type system where we can do analytics on our customer data. And so that is going to be another big component of this customer engagement effort, is to gather information from our customers proactively. It may not be about a specific product and service. The surveys and the feedback tools may be more general studies about how our customers live their life, how it relates to their energy usage, what they're expecting, maybe not just about their utility, but how they interact with other service providers. All of that data then can be used in conjunction with the data that we have in terms of customers' bill payment behaviors or usage information that we have internally. So I think what you're going to see coming out of this is a far stronger framework of our research and the data analytics of using that data to really inform our decisions as we move forward. So Heather Siebken, who is our Director of of Product Development and Marketing is going to be leading this effort. And like I mentioned, she'll work closely with the Public Affairs group, Kate's team, the Business Technology group, in order to get the data warehouse and the analytics set up. But really, this effort should be influencing decisions that are made across all the business units and the other strategic initiatives as we move forward. So I mentioned that we have 380,000 customers, and they don't all value the same thing. We have 336,000 residential customers. Some of them are very focused on sustainability and renewable energy and wanting to make sure that they're an early adopter on electric vehicles, and that not all are focused on that. And so we need to have a better understanding of the segments that are within our customer groups. In the past, historically, from a utility perspective, those segments were really rather large buckets of residential, commercial, and industrial customers. And those buckets really were around how the customer used our electric system, and not so much about their lifestyle and their behaviors outside of their interactions with us. And really what we want to have going forward, so that we can better serve the customers relative to their energy needs, is to have that more holistic view of the customer and the segments that we need to be providing for, and the ranging values that you would see. So again, going on that will provide us the basis so that we can have more individualized, personalized conversations with our customers, provide those consulting services that they're looking for from OPPD, and ultimately help us to align our investments on what our customers' priorities are. So what we know that today we are not proactively seeking the information from our customers to inform us, the board and management, from a strategic planning perspective. I would say the research that we've done has been very transactional or tactical in nature in the past. This is intended to be more strategic planning, long-term thinking about where we need to take this utility for the future. Doing it on this reactive basis, obviously that means that we're providing products and service reactively, and we may be providing things to the folks that are vocal. We have a large subset of customers we aren't hearing from, and so we want to make sure that we're out there proactively getting feedback from every segment of our customer base. What we don't know. So as I mentioned, the finer points of our customer segments and how they differ for what they value from different products and services. Who do our customers want us to be in the future? If they want to get off the grid, do they want OPPD to help them get off the grid? What is our role in helping them manage their energy services, or controlling the lighting or the appliances in their home? Those are the types of things that we don't know or understand about our customers today and what they would value. We have minimal today on our products and services that we offer. The perception of the value of those from our customers' perspective, we sell them a product and service, they're pleased with it, but we have minimal follow-up to really understand, could we expand the number of customers that are participating in that product by getting some additional insight and feedback from the customers that have it and the customers that don't? Is there a way for us to improve the products that we have today? So that's going to be another component of this effort. And then we need to gather a lot more data and start building those segmentation models so that we can better serve our customers' future energy needs. So why would we collect all this feedback from our customers? One, we want to understand our customers. We need to move to this model where we can discover and deeply understand the expectations of the customers, the residentials, the business, our communities, and the role that we serve. Our customer data really can be one of the greatest assets that we have. We have a lot of data about our customers, obviously through the data that we collect today. But when we combine that with the other data that we don't have today, it really will be powerful for how we can better serve the customers and help them transition to this new energy world or utility of the future. We want to be able to empower our customers by giving them, based on that information we get them, we'll be able to provide them information and insights to help empower them and allow them to make decisions on how they want to interact with OPPD and how they want to approach their energy needs moving forward. We want to be able to be in a position of solution engineering. So this is an area where today we don't really necessarily know what customers are wanting and how we can help solve their problems or the pain points that they have today and how we might solve their problems. So this is really what we're looking to do. We want to be able to make sure that our employees have a toolkit that differentiates solutions for customers. Today, the employee, based on the interaction they're having through a call or out in the field, they have limited information about that customer. Gathering more data about the customer and the segmentations will help provide that employee rep the ability to provide or offer up, consult more specifically and personalized to our customers. And then finally, we want to be able to provide customer and operational insights that allow for continuous process improvement, whether it's about a product and service or just our internal operations on how we're delivering service to that customer. We always want to make sure that we're getting the feedback we need to improve our processes. So what does this mean for the future? We're going to be able to provide management and the board with the information, analytics, strategic insights, and education that will equip us to make informed, objective decisions on behalf of our customers. And our customers will be telling us what they want, not necessarily the other way around in terms of here's what the utility thinks you should be doing. We want the customers to be telling us what they want from their public utility. The plan is for this research to take 18 to 24 months. Now, it won't be 18 to 24 months before we get output from it. This will be a very iterative process, but as I mentioned, we want to look at the work that we've done so far, and we want to have a consultant help us and evaluate what is the research, what are the components of research that we are missing, and then develop this framework that we're going to do the proactive research, that general study that I talked about, and then from that gather the insights that we can about where our customers want us to go for the future. So I think what you'll see is some iterations of information coming forward out of this initiative over the next 18 to 24 month period. And that will in turn be feeding the other initiatives that are underway. Certainly, with the decarbonization effort, there will be a large customer stakeholder effort with that. And so Lisa's team and this customer engagement team will be working with Mary's team on what does that look like for that particular effort, and then how do we house the information that we gain from that and the insights that we gain from that. What we learn from this will be telling to what our employees need to know and what they need to be skilled at for the future as we move forward. It will be telling to what we need to build into the electrical system, the transmission and distribution system as well, to serve the customer's need in that utility of the future. It will inform, like I said, the other strategic initiatives. It'll inform our product development team as we're rolling out new products and services. And, ultimately, we're going to have the data and analytics that we need in order to provide solutions that will allow customers to look at OPPD in a different way and choose us as they move forward and they have more choices, but really rely upon us to be their trusted energy partner. And that is the conclusion of what I have. That's how we're going to lead the way with customer engagement.
Thanks, Julie. Appreciate that. Again, this is our opportunity to kind of share the second strategic initiative next month. Troy Vi will be here to talk about the resiliency, reliability, and this ongoing kind of digitalization, automation of our distribution transmission systems and what that may look like. And so he'll have that opportunity to share that in the same way. And then our intent would be over some periodic timeframe to come back to the board, provide updates and insights about what we're learning, what we're seeing, what we're knowing, and have that opportunity to share that publicly as well. And then after Troy does that in August, Kate Brown will talk broader about business technology and how it interfaces all the different things. These are all very integrated and very important for us to think about that as we kind of move down this strategic initiative path. And finally, Mart Sedke in the October timeframe will be able to kind of vet that out about what does it mean on the power through people, and that how do we begin to think about that with our employees and the skills and the talents that we need. What do we have today, and how can we assist our employees in that evolution and in that transformation? And so that's part of our commitment that we've made to our employees to be able to do that. So really excited. We'll begin to do that. We'll begin to share with the board some scoping documents and information as we begin to scale and scope these initiatives, and we're doing those deep dives kind of as we speak. And so as we give you this piece, we're already doing deep dives, and things are we're seeing the scale and the scope of some of these initiatives and how they'll play out so in the future. So we'll make sure that we communicate that. So thank you.
Thank you. And I think you're absolutely, when you say that everybody is integrative, they are. There hasn't, the past two presentations that we had, I think they've each noted every one of the vice presidents in this. I mean, they cannot do it without the other. And you really have to look at it very holistically at the very end, which will bring all together at the very end, which I think is excellent. I'm sure we have other comments.
Yes.
Mrs. Moody is the first one. He's the one whose eyes are brightest at the moment.
Just a comment and a question. First, I want to commend your team in the last couple years that I've been on the board. The progress that you've made in engaging customers has been exemplary, and that's one of the things that I'm very pleased about. As a public utility, I think that's extraordinarily important. So thanks for the work that's already behind you. I think we're a leader in that sense. My question is about how do we balance all of the great, good data that we're going to get about what our customers' values, preferences, and wishes are versus our role in being a catalyst for adoption of new technologies. I think, in some ways, I'll fully admit that I don't know what I want until somebody actually educates me on what's available. So can you talk a little bit about how we might sort of balance that as you go through this process?
Sure, I will attempt to. That comes up as a discussion a lot in our strategic discussions is, are we the catalyst? And what is our role there? And I think that our general studies that we plan to do will maybe help us better understand, will customers adopt to it? Because I think what we could share from our past product and service offerings is we'll get people who say they'll buy it, but then in reality about half of that through our research and what actually transpires.
Sure.
It's about half of what customers who indicated that they would buy something actually buy it.
Yeah.
And so it becomes that matter of like, what's the risk? Mm-hmm. So how big of a financial outlay, I guess, would we be making to be the catalyst? Mm-hmm. What's at risk to the customers in the end if it doesn't take off, if we step into being the catalyst?
Yeah.
So I think if it's a low risk initiative, low financial risk initiative, then I could see us stepping in more to be a catalyst.
Yeah.
And I would just add, I think it's important for us in that catalyst role to be an early adopter of proven technologies in this example that you're giving, but to understand what that may look like earlier on. And so the research that we do won't necessarily be on the 380,000 customer owners that we have today. You know, we are going to drop down into our college customers, our high school customers, our junior high customers, probably even have some dialogue and discussion at the grade school level, because that's that 5, 10, 15-year customer that we're going to have. And so how do we begin to develop what those thought processes are going to be like, so we can understand that we may not be a catalyst in the R&D and development, but man, we know that's coming. We know what those customers want. We know what they really desire. And if we can be quick adopters and to begin to shape it in the way that we think our customers want it shaped, then we're in a much better position.
Sure.
And situation. So that's how I would also add to that question.
Yeah, that's I think that's helpful context. I'll be curious to see how we're gaining information from middle schoolers and elementary.
No one's really, I'm telling you, I will tell you, this is going to be our challenge.
wizardry, yeah.
But our theory
parents would
is
say
we
it.
have to begin to think
Yeah,
about
no
that
question.
differently.
Yeah.
And when I've talked about that with other utility executives, I get the look that I just got from you. I'm interested to see how that works, but it'll be interesting to see what we get, and we'll share what that looks like.
Well, and it's a couple more comments. One is others are sort of going through some of the same processes, which is to say there's some work that's been done out there regionally, nationally around what customer preferences are. And so I assume that we're going to be triangulating what we learn with what
Yeah.
is out there more broadly so
Correct.
as to not repeat it. And last thing I would say is on this, I mean, I think your point is right on in that considering the financial risk is really important, but obviously there are other factors
There
for us,
definitely
reliability,
there
and
are.
environmental sensitivity. So looking to our mission to help guide those criteria as well, I think is important. Okay, thank you.
Other comments?
I would agree wholeheartedly with Craig. And I'm encouraged to hear that you're talking about understanding segments of a population based on lifestyle and values, not just usage. Representing a rural area, we sometimes think differently. We have, and sometimes we feel underrepresented. So I know that a few months ago, we were talking about rolling in some agricultural groups and polling them, and I'm hoping that this will be part of the conversation, because I think that's a segment of our population that needs some care. So thank you for that, and to that point, the university does a rural poll every year, the Department of Natural Resources and Agriculture, and that information touches on what those customers value, and so that information is also available, and that we don't have to recreate.
It's interesting that you mentioned the rural area, because I think about like 20 years ago when I first got introduced to I'll say the outage side of OPPD, or outage restoration side of OPPD. The rural customers were very self-reliant, and oftentimes, if we had a huge power outage, it was like, oh, well, you can get to us when you get to us, kind of a deal, because they had the means, they had, their way of life that they could survive with that. But today, they're as dependent on technology as the rest of the world is, and it's in everything they do. So it is very important to understand how that's changed and what our role is in helping to make sure that they're able to have reliability and resiliency built into their system in a way that in the past they didn't necessarily indicate that they needed it to us. So
I'll just put a highlight on something that you said. I really appreciate the fact that you're moving from reactive products and services to proactive. I think that that's extremely important for the organization to do across the board, but specifically with how we work with our customers. I think that will allow them to then take more ownership of how they use data to make decisions in their lives and how they use energy. And I think that that's really exciting.
Agreed.
Well, I'm going to jump in because each person who goes in front of me is taking something off my list too. Yeah, proactive rather than the reactive, that's great. I think that there are a lot of things that people don't know that might be available to them, and there's great information to verify that. The chances of someone having distributed generation, solar in particular, goes up dramatically if their neighbor has solar, and so just encountering the product makes someone much more likely to choose it. And my coworker just today drove down to Nebraska City in her new electric vehicle and sent me an excited message back. So I think that the more frequently you encounter some of these new products and services, the more likely you are to desire them. And so understanding that we have things available with thermostat programs and those types of things that people might not know are available, I think that is a great step forward. And so thanks for including that. Also having the more holistic view of the different customer groups, I think as Janice pointed out, I think that's really going to be very helpful because there are people who are more flexible in their energy use. I am in a household, a two-person household with no kids, so we are much more flexible than most households are. We have distributed generation and an electric vehicle, so we are well outside of what is the kind of normal standard household. But I think recognizing that products and services for different households will be more effective for them and for us as a utility is also very important to seeing where the future is, and having, maybe that means different rates or whatever it means, I think is a very important part of where we're going. Lastly, you talked about looking forward and new opportunities like electrification, which I think you know is something that's very important to me. I read the engineering news record at my office. I don't know if Amanda does as well, but this month's edition featured electrified, very heavy-duty equipment. And so as a sign of the times, when you have electrified bulldozers and backhoes, I mean, that is certainly a new technology that has not been available before that I don't think would have been predicted. And so looking forward to where these opportunities are going to come from, I think they're coming fast and furious, and recognizing those as the slide you had indicated, I think that's really very important. So again, thank you very much for having that focus on where new opportunities are in the future. This is great, and I look forward to seeing how this interacts with the presentation from last month and the other presentations.
Thank you.
you.
Thanks very much.
One of the other, I agree with everything that's been said, but I do want to mention one of the big things that customers are most anxious about is outages. And I'm sure you're going to be working on as far as outaging. And this is when we talk about integrative, we're talking about also Troy Vai's area. We're talking about the IT stuff as far as Kate Brown's area, and then we're talking about communications as far as Lisa's area. But I wonder if you could talk about as far as your ideas as far as communicating with the customers, being more proactive for them, as far as making them, empowering them a little bit, because that's one time that you're totally not empowered and you're totally afraid of when are you going to get your electricity back on? Should I get rid of my refrigerator, empty my refrigerator? Can you help me on just on your section, because I'm sure we're going to be talking about it each area as we go on.
We talk about this probably every day at OPPD.
It's the main thing.
Lisa's team, Public Affairs, and the Customer Experience team, and the Energy Delivery team. We have discussions with our ongoing efforts that we are working towards. How do we get more information back from the field? And how do we get that out to our customers more effectively? And so what we're trying to do, we had a grand plan for a preference center, and that solution kind of fell apart. You may recall that a couple years ago. That would have been where customers could opt in and say they wanted what their preferences were about how they were communicated with, and provide texting and all that type of stuff. And so we had to back off of that. We're working with Kate and her team through some of the technology debt to offer up some more notifications beyond what we give today for our customers. But we're also looking at where are the customers already at, that we can feed the information into those channels. Are there social media channels that customers may use that are subsets, not a wide broadcast, like, for instance, like the Nextdoor app, I don't know if any of you
Right.
use
My
that,
favorite
right? You
app,
get
yeah.
information about what's
Favorite
going
app.
on in your little area of the world. Is there a way OPPD can get in on that for neighborhoods so that we can put neighborhood-specific information out there without it being blasted to everybody?
Right.
So we continue to chip away and try to figure out some quick wins, but know that that is one of the big items or focus areas of Lisa and I's team and Kate.
It's the entire company.
Because it will
And
take
Troy's.
technology in many cases to help us deliver what customers ultimately expect on that.
So what you're gonna hear from Troy next month is a little bit about, around the reliability and resiliency, is about how do we limit that with some of the work that we've done with controllers and relays and a variety of other kinds of activity. How do you limit that outage to impact the least amount of people that we have today? And how do you identify it quick enough to make that repair quick enough? Some in the self-healing method and mode, and some where you still have to be physically present, but I can narrow it down very specifically to know exactly what piece of equipment has failed and what it's impacted, and I can get there, rather than having to survey a circuit that impacts 1,500 people. So you're gonna hear some of that work show up next month in the presentation as well.
I'll throw in something. I generally agree with everything that's been said so far by the board members, and so thank you for all the work that you've done, and thank you for where you're headed. On your point, I think of the world a little differently. Laugh line.
We didn't say anything.
Impressed.
It's not that we didn't think it, but we didn't say it.
So I think of customer, I appreciate it. Customer adoption models, we've talked about that, and there's a technology diffusion model. And to me, there's a time difference between the two, from when the company perceives that new technology is something that they want. So this is, in our role as a catalyst, it sounds like, in your response to that's something that I think the board needs to hear about your decision points. When is it that we are going to, be that catalyst, we OPPD writ large? And when is it important to do that, and how do we make those decisions? That didn't come out today, but I think it's there. When you talk about integration,
Sure.
as you are, thank goodness, getting more data. Social scientists would say they can make great predictions, with the data that they have, as well as engineers can. Amazing that they can do that with behaviors. If we're doing resource planning, and your group and what you're doing ends up being demand-side management technologies,
Yeah, I know.
you're going to need to know 5 years out, as best that you can. You need to set those goals and be able to feed back to the other folks how you're going to manage load as well as we are currently managing generation. So did
Agreed.
you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so I think what you would see is the work we did on integrated energy marketplace, I think is where we took some technologies and the team that was involved with that, Troy led that team. But they looked at the different technologies, right? And they viewed it from what's the investment to get there? What's the, what's the flash point where the price and the break, there was a certain term for it. But it escapes me right now, but where there would be parity, let's say on the distributed generation side, like predictions of where there would be parity, and understanding what's the lead time then for us to be in that versus getting in it too soon and having a big investment and maybe not getting the investment's not being paid for by the customers that are partaking in it. And then it ends up being shared across all the customers. I think that's the challenge that we have, is trying to determine what's the right point for us to jump into it without putting a lot at risk for the rest of the customers.
Yeah, good. You raised the question in your response a little bit, and I guess we need back and forth, but I'm always curious about the discussion where benefits have to go directly to those who use it, and maybe we're not always talking about the benefit for the system as a whole with new technology. So,
Well, I think the great example that I would use in that regard, Director Yoder, would be if in 2007 we installed AMI, automated meter reading infrastructure, without having the distribution capability to understand the integration of that, to understand how we are going to communicate with customers, and not have the technical capability to be able to do that at that point in time, we'd be in a position today where maybe no different, maybe different, but many of those folks that installed in 2007 are going back to redo that with the next level of technology. And in some regulatory cases, commissions have said, you haven't provided the prudency on creating the value and benefit for the customer owners just by installing technology. So the balance is, we want to make sure there is this value creation that occurs with those investments. Now, how we articulate that value, how we identify that value, I think is your question is, let's make sure we understand those decision points to make sure that we understand where that value is, and that we are now prepared and ready to be able to do that as an organization.
And that's why we have an engaged board to ask those questions,
enough said.
correct?
Thank you.
We're all engaged in this.
So I think what you would see, similar to the output of the integrated energy marketplace on those different technologies, we would come to you with the research that we've done and explain where we're at, where we feel the benefits are, and get board input.
Thank you.
You could say we're not a silent board. Correct? We're engaged. That's what we're
Correct.
supposed to be.
Supposed to answer.
Okay, if there's no other questions, then Julie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
And now I'd love to open it up to the public for any public comment. Okay, this is the end of the,
Regulars are gone. You don't get weather
Anyone like to
report.
make any comment?
You don't get,
He's leaving.
oh, there's somebody coming.
Hi, my name is Bob Kraft. I live at 3507 South 184th Avenue, Omaha, Nebraska. I thanked you for a number of things last month. A reduced rate for having a geothermal heat pump, for your solar program that I was able to join, but I forgot to thank you for helping me to get another electric car through the rebate program that you offered. I have 2 charge point units in my home and solar panels on my roof. And I didn't need to have 2 charge point units, but I wanted for us to work together so you could see what a home with solar panels and 2 EVs looked like. I thank you for having me be a part of, I don't know what to call it, the feedback system that you have. I do a number of things where you ask me for information and I provide information to you, and you're doing that with lots of people, and that's a part of what's being talked about, and I appreciate that. I really get to voice myself. I have a few questions. Some of them were, I think, somewhat answered today. Last month you indicated that you currently have what percent of retail as renewable energy? I heard 40% by the end of the year. So currently we're at
30,
30. Thank you.
give or take, plus or minus.
Yeah.
Sure. And by 2020, you will have 50% of retail will be through renewables. Is that right? By the end of 2020, I think you
No,
said?
I would say in this next going by the end of 19, we'll have generation, renewable generation that will give us 40% of our retail sales will be coming from renewable generation. So
Right, and I thought you said even a 50% in the future of 2020 with another wind farm
So
coming
we
on?
had some conversation several years ago. We're evaluating all of those elements about what that next generation will look like. And so I wouldn't get there yet, but I'm not sure we won't be there. So,
Directional goal, as you said, is.
there you go,
Directional
right.
goal.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Right after that last board meeting that I attended, I read in an article in Utility Dive, it was June 17th, 2019. It's called Utility Dive, U.S. Power Sector Emissions Rise as Natural Gas Outpaces Renewable. And it said that you were one of 5 that puts out the most pounds of carbon per megawatt hour. And that, I have to tell you, really scared me. They quoted you, or they cited you by name as one of the worst 5 energy providers in this way in the nation. And I realize that's just one article, and that may distort things in one way or another, but it was scary to me. I was disappointed by that, and if any of you had seen that article, which I'm guessing you probably did, I'm sure that it was very disappointing to you as well.
30 seconds, Mr. Kraft.
I'm sorry?
30 seconds.
So I wanted to know what % of total, not just retail output, is currently renewable?
Well, it would be, I'm looking at my team here. I'll talk a little bit about that report, but keep me direct on this. That report did not take into account renewable generation that we contract with and the megawatt hours generated that we contract with. So it was based very specifically on coal generation, and didn't include, if I remember the article that you're speaking about, did not include the renewable generation that we purchase into our system today. That 30% that we have today did not include that, so, in the comparatives, so.
So to finish, I would just say then, thank you. I think you have a terribly difficult job. I see you as very powerful people in my life in what you're doing. And it must be very difficult to balance affordability with the difficult power situation that you have. But I really appreciate what you're doing, and I want us to continue to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kraft.
Hey, Liz Veazey, 912 North 49th Street. So I'm very excited to learn about the commitment to complete the decarbonization study and OPPD talking about carbon, considering 100% decarbonization. So thank you to everybody on the board and everybody who really made that possible. I'm interested in seeing regular updates and really understanding the process for public and stakeholder engagement, especially sort of building on the presentation earlier. My experience with public and stakeholder engagement around the fixed fee, the IRP for WAPA, and the community solar project has pretty generally been that OPPD, it feels like OPPD management has really decided this is what we're doing, and there's no real interest in engagement and no conversation and no feedback and no let's work together and figure this out. And so I heard earlier, and my understanding is that OPPD really has a commitment to meaningful public engagement, meaning that OPPD listens, really listens to the public and adapts proposals based on public feedback. And ideally we come out with something better by working together. So I'd like to see OPPD show that meaningful engagement throughout the development of the decarbonization study. And I think, meaningful engagement should really be measured by customer owners. For example, do a majority of those engaged feel listened to and that OPPD was somewhat responsive? Let's see, I'd also like to see it with future public engagement around integrated resource planning. My understanding is that the IRP for WAPA is the only opportunity for public engagement around resource planning. So I'd like to see more of a sort of conversation. For example, Metro, with their BRT bus stations, they did 20% of the design. They came to the public, they got feedback, and then they integrated that into the next step, and they came back and said, this is where we're at, and then sort of had a back and forth iteration process where people were engaged. And I think it'd be really great. And I'd like to see that. Can we see that with the decarbonization study? So that's one question.
Okay, thank you very much. I think if you've noticed that we have tried all of this, what we're trying to do, that we're, I'm sorry that you do not feel that you've had enough stakeholder, outreach, but we continue to improve and we'll work on that. Thank you.
I would just tell you, I think we do make decisions based on that customer feedback. And I'll go back to 2014, when we did the original kind of resource plan of what it looks like in the future, what we did in 2016 with the decision on Fort Calhoun Nuclear Station, what we did on the rate restructuring, where we originally went out with a $35 customer charge, came back to a $30 customer charge with an impact of how do we lessen the impact for low-income, low-use customers. And so we did make some changes in that process. As we do in all of those, what's interesting about the IRP for WAPA, it's not a decision point. It's a document that's presented to WAPA without any action on any part. What you will see coming to the board over the next several months are more of those actions of what that may look like in the future. And certainly as we begin to do the stakeholder process, as we begin to develop the decarbonization strategy, that will be part of the stakeholder process that will engage, very, very similar to what we did in 2014, which was those same kind of 18 meetings and a variety of online panels, a variety of quantifiable and qualifiable research to get that feedback. And we made significant changes to that, which came to shutting down on coal units 1, 2, and 3 at North Omaha, converting those units to natural gas in the interim, and with a focus of a cease date for units 4 and 5 at North Omaha. So there was significant input that we received that shaped those decisions that we recommended to the board and the board received. So I understand your concern, and we'll make sure that we stay true to our commitment to make sure that we do a valuable and a valued stakeholder process.
Can I just add? Well, sure. Well covered. Eric referenced earlier the stakeholder process and the new IRP process. So there are now, it's kind of almost bookended. There's a stakeholder process at the very beginning where we're going out and getting information through that process. And I think that's important to have. And then there's another one kind of at the end. So I wanted to mention that. You mentioned about getting feedback on our engagement processes. That's something that we've talked about before, and we've implemented that in the Sarpy County transmission line, if I remember correctly. So that's something that's happening now, which is great. And to echo what you just said, Mr. Burke, there's no question that this board places a high priority on engagement. And as we go through the decarbonization, I mean, any of these efforts, you can be sure that we're going to place a high priority on ensuring that that happens.
Great. Thanks, Greg, and everyone. And then one other.
I think your time's up, if that's okay.
You have 34 seconds.
Oh, good for you.
Well, so the part 2 was on another, on-bill tariffed financing for energy efficiency. And, I heard earlier from Julie that people want energy efficiency. And I think that's really an opportunity where OPPD could lead to tens of millions of dollars in investment in energy efficiency, provide improved comfort and lower bills for customers, reduce peak demand, carbon, other pollutions, and other pollutants. So I'd really like to see OPPD explore that as a program. If it's tariffed on bill and it's connected to people's meters, it's not alone, increases access substantially. I mean, I think you all have a new energy steps program around weatherization and $1,000, but you have to own the home. So being able to do something with renters, I think would really expand access to energy efficiency and be really great for the district. So I'll follow up with something through OPPD Listen.
Thank you.
So on the stakeholder process, the slide that Javier had Tuesday in the SD9 monitoring report showed that engagement process, and those are on the website now, correct?
They are. They are.
So the materials about the engagement are available on the website, and we can help you get that if you'd like to see that. It shows where those points of engagement are.
Hi, Alan Vivoka, 3719 Hamilton. My friend John Pollock was unable to be here today. He had a family engagement, and he usually does the weather forecast, so I decided I would do the weather forecast today.
Thanks. Hopefully John gave you the information, though.
That's the part that I didn't do. So it
might be as
turns
accurate.
out
It might not be
that
as accurate.
that turned out to be a wrong decision. But I still have time to correct it. So I'm going to not do the weather report because that's what you do when you make a wrong decision. Which reminded me of the board decision a few years back to decide to increase the fixed fee and stick with the reduced block rate structure.
Great way to bring it up.
And I think you guys could do the same thing. You could correct a mistake and change that when it comes up later this year. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Ellen. You sure you don't have any weather report?
Well, it's hot today.
Thanks, okay.
I did tell my team, we're gonna start rating John's weather report on the screen here, whether it's an A,
He's
B,
pretty
D,
I think he's
or
pretty
F.
good.
On
very
how,
good.
how accurate he is over that
He's very
30-day
accurate.
period.
For this month, for last month.
Yeah, not this month. No, you're good. You're good, Alan.
He's actually better than that.
Okay, if there's no
pretty
other
good.
comments, that concludes our meeting. Thank you for coming.
Hey, Lisa, hold on.